Arles presents, like Verona in Italy, a particularly significant example of the appropriation of an ancient city by medieval European civilization. It has preserved impressive monuments dating from the Roman era, of which the earliest are the arena and the Roman theater. The two-tiered Roman amphitheater, or arena, is probably the most prominent attraction of this charming city in southern France. Measuring 136 meters in length and 109 meters wide, the 120 Romanesque arches date back to the 1st century BC. With the fall of the Roman Empire in the 5th century, the amphitheater became a shelter for the city's population. It was transformed into a fortress with 4 towers, and more than 200 houses and 2 chapels were fit inside it. In 1826, the expropriation of the houses built within the arena was undertaken. This lengthy process was concluded in 1830, when the first event since Roman times was organized in the arena. The Roman theater in Arles was built during the reign of the Emperor Augustus, and with seating for 8,000 people on 33 tiers of steps, was as large as the theater nearby Orange. Of the rear wall of the stage, only a few stumps of pillars and 2 more or less complete columns remain. The Church of Saint-Trophime, once Arles Cathedral, remains a masterpiece of Romanesque art. Overlooking the spacious Place de la République, the Church of Saint-Trophime boasts a well-preserved 12th century portal, which is widely considered one of the finest achievements of the Southern Romanesque style. The tympanum depicts Christ the King surrounded by the symbols of the 4 evangelists. The theme dominating the portal is the Last Judgment. The long central nave of the Romanesque church soars 20 meters high. Lower lateral aisles are on either side of the nave, and a transept supports the square central bell tower. The dark interior has minimal decoration, though its austere symmetry and artwork are worth a look. Saint-Trophime was constructed in the 11th and 12th centuries on the site of an 8th century church dedicated to Saint Stephen. Saint Stephen was the first Christian martyr, while Saint-Trophime was the first bishop of Arles in the 4th century. Frederick Barbarossa was crowned King of Arles here in 1178. At the time the cathedral was built in the late 11th century or early 12th century, Arles was the second largest city in Provence, with a population of between 15 and 20,000 people. It had a busy port on the Rhône River, and 2 new cities on either side of the old Roman town, surrounded by a wall. It was at least formally independent as a kingdom of Arles, and it had attracted many religious orders, including the Knights Hospitalier, the Knights Templar, and Mendicant orders, which had built a number of churches inside the town walls. The refectory or dining hall was built first next to the church, along with the chapter house or meeting room for the canons. More interesting are the cloisters of Saint Trophime that adjoin the church on the southeast. The north and east galleries of the cloister are in the 12th century Romanesque style, while the south and west galleries are late 14th century Gothic. Pillars alternate with columns, the capitals of which are decorated with fine sculptures of biblical scenes. The pillars bear figures of apostles and saints, interspaced with narrative reliefs of Christ and the saints. The cloister was constructed between the second half of the 12th century and the first half of the 13th century for the use of the canons, the priests who attended the bishop and managed church property. Under a reform instituted by Pope Gregory VII in the 11th century, canons were required to live like monks, with a common dormitory, refectory, and cloister within the cathedral enclosure, separated by a wall from the city. The Roman bath was built during the 4th century AD. The baths were a highly popular social venue at the time, and visitors enjoyed the luxury of the building's heated floors. Successive Roman emperors enjoyed spending time in Arles and built numerous important monuments there. Of the once extensive series of buildings, which resembled a palace, only the caldarium or warm bath, parts of the hypocaust with its heated floors, and the tepidarium or warm air room remain. Alyscamps is a large Roman necropolis, one of the most famous necropolises of the ancient world. Roman cities traditionally forbade burials within the city limits. It was therefore common for the roads immediately outside a city to be lined with tombs and mausoleums. The Appian Way outside Rome provides a good example. The Alyscamps was Arles' main burial ground for nearly 1,500 years. It was the final segment of the Aurelian Way, leading up to the city gates, and was used as a burial ground for prominent citizens, whose memorials ranged from simple sarcophagi to elaborate monuments. Several buildings line the sides of the avenue. The first is the Church of Saint-César-le-Vieux, which in the Middle Ages belonged to the monastery of Saint-César. This arch was the church's western door or porch. Here's the groundskeeper's house. And the Porcelet Chapel. The Church of Saint-Honorat is a vestige of earlier buildings, most of them in the Romanesque style. The remains of the Paleo-Christian necropolis can be seen in front of the church. Archaeological excavations carried out have unearthed this complex of tombs. The remains of a half-buried door are still visible. The unfinished 12th century church, which was built of finely dressed freestone, must have been planned with a 5-bay nave and side aisles. The transept pillars and arcades were modified in the 16th century and embellished into thick cylindrical piles and reinforcing buttresses. The Abbaye of Montmajour is located about 5 kilometers outside of Arles. The abbey combines a variety of styles, including the Gothic and Classical. The Abbaye de Montmajour, originally built for the Benedictine monks, is actually composed of two monastic ensembles. Perched like a fortress on a rocky hilltop, the site was once an island surrounded by marshy land. During the Middle Ages, the abbey became an important place of pilgrimage, and by traveling there one could obtain the pardon of Montmajour. The Pont de l'Orme Tower was built to protect the abbey from the rampaging Grande Compagnie, armies of French soldiers left unpaid after the 100 Years' War in the 14th century. The tower is 26 meters high and contained a well and a storeroom for provisions and 3 floors in the upper level. The top of the tower is equipped with battlements, slits for arrows, and machicolations designed to drop unpleasant things on the heads of attackers. From the top of the tower, the visitor can see the ruins of the complex's 18th century Moorist monastery, built in the classical Pyrenean style, though on a massive scale. The building was originally 5 stories high and covered 8,000 square meters, with 60 windows and 2 grand staircases. The massive church on top of the crypt has a single nave 14 meters wide. It was originally designed to have 5 bays, but apparently because of a shortage of funds, only 2 bays were constructed, and the west end was left unfinished. The apse at the east end of the church is semicircular and has the same diameter as the width of the nave. It has an imposing semi-spherical dome with 5 flat ribs. The nave is covered with slightly pointed barrel vaults supported by projecting transverse arches resting upon cruciform piers. The abbey is noted for its graves dating from the 11th to the 14th centuries, which were carved in the rock. The rocky slope near St. Peter's Chapel has more than a dozen tombs cut into the rock in the shape of human bodies, with places for the head, shoulders, and feet. The abbey's subterranean crypt, built of perfectly cut rock, and its massive unfinished church are also renowned. The cloister was built to the south of the church. It was meant to reinforce the walls of the first 4 bays of the church, but these bays were never built. It is rectangular, 27 meters long and 24 meters wide. In the center is a cistern which collected rainwater through pipes and channels from the roofs of the monastery buildings. Arles has been called the soul of Provence and has long been a favorite destination for art lovers, archaeologists, and historians. The city, together with Montmajour Abbey, was listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1981.